A very good morning to you all. Myself, Dr.J.Mekala Devi, Assistant Professor of History, SFR College, Sivagasi. See, in the last class we discussed about the Vedic literature and introduction. In that lesson, we discussed about the cities of Harappan culture, how far it declined and their economic and administrative system, and how does the Aryan enter into India and in which way they entered into India, and how does the word Aryan arise, then where did they settle. Then finally we came to know about the Vedic period. Here, how does the word Arya started using, from where does it arise, and the original home of the Aryans. So through that we learnt a lot of information about the Vedic period. And then the Aryans, how did they enter and how they occupied the places, how they settled here. Everything was discussed in the last class. And through this, the original home of the Aryans also came to know here. Until now, it is a great debate. The different scholars, they identified the different region as the original home of the Aryans. And some historians said that the original home of the Aryans was Central Asia, and later that Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Aryans originally inhabited Siberia, but due to the falling temperature, they had to leave Siberia for greener pastures. However, the theory of southern Russia appears to be more probable and widely accepted by historians. From there, the Aryans moved to different parts of Asia and Europe. They entered India about 1500 BCE, and then they came to be known as Indo-Aryans. They spoke Indo-Aryan language, Sanskrit. And next we discussed about the tribal conflicts. The first group of Aryans, they fought against the Dravidians and other inhabitants. They defeated, and they are supposed to have been pushed down towards South India. The enemies were described by Aryans as Panis and Dasas. The Panis, they were cattle thieves. The Dasas were held to be inferior because of their dark skin and flat facial features. The word Dasa later came to denote a slave. The term Dasyuhatya is repeatedly mentioned in the Rig Veda. However, the Aryans also fought among themselves, and thus many intra-tribal conflicts were common among the Aryan communities. The Vedic literature. The word Veda is derived from the root Vid, which means to know. In other words, the term Veda signifies wisdom, knowledge or vision. There are 4 Vedas, and Rig Veda was composed in the early Vedic period, while the other 3 Vedas were written in the later Vedic period. What are the 4 Vedas? We know the 4 Vedas. They are Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda and Atharvana Veda. So in the Rig Veda, it is the earliest of the 4 Vedas. It consists of 10 mandalas or books and 1028 hymns. The hymns were sung in praise of Agni, Indra, Mitra, Varuna and other gods. It contains the famous Purushaksha that explains that the 4 Varnas, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra, were born respectively from the mouth, arms, thighs and feet of the Creator. The universally famous Gayatri Mantra is also in Rig Veda. The second one is the Sama Veda. It is a collection of melodies. It contains stanzas taken from the Rig Veda and set to the tune for the purpose of singing. Sama Veda is important in tracing the history of Indian music. The third one, the Yajur Veda. It consists of not only hymns but also rituals that have to accompany their recitation. Various details of rules to be observed at the time of sacrifice are mentioned in the Veda. The rituals reflect the social and political milieu in which they arouse. There are 2 main texts of Yajur Veda, Shukla Yajur Veda, Krishna Yajur Veda. The fourth one is the Atharvana Veda. It contains details of rituals. It also contains charms and spells to ward off evils and diseases. The content of this Veda also throws light on the beliefs and practices of non-Aryans. 20 ancient India, besides the Vedas, there are other sacred works like the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, the Aryankas and the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata. The first Veda, we can divide the Vedic period into two sections. First one, early Vedic period, it is also called the Rig Vedic period, and then the second one is later Vedic period. Let's discuss about the first one, early Vedic period or Rig Vedic period. The period of the early Vedic period is 1500 to 1000 BCE. During the Rig Vedic period, the Aryans were mostly confined to the Indus region. The Rig Veda refers to Sabda Sindhu. It is also called the land of 7 rivers. It includes the 5 rivers. The 5 rivers are Punjab, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and then the last one is Sutlej. So all these 5 rivers are flowing in Punjab. Once again I repeat the 5 rivers: Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas and Sutlej. It is also flowing along with the Indus and Saraswati. The political, social and cultural life of the Rig Vedic people can be traced from the hymns of Rig Veda. The political organization. Early Vedic age, it had a tribal polity. The tribal chief led wars. It was also a protector of the entire group. The standing army, instead of this standing army, the entire village participated in wars. We have to think it of here. Kingship, it was hereditary. What do you mean by hereditary? It means if the father is placing a role in kingship next to the king, next to the father, his son will become a king, and next to the son, his grandson will become the king. The king or the chief enjoyed a position of preeminence in the tribe. He was reckoned to be Indra in valor, Mitra in kindness, Varuna in virtues. And next one, the administrative divisions. How far the administrative divisions worked out? We can divide this into 4. The lowest unit of the Rig Vedic society was a patriarchal family. It is also called Kula. A number of families bound together by kinship ties of blood formed a clan. The Grama consisted of several families and it was controlled under a headman. He is also known as Gramani. Several villages formed a Vis. It was placed under a Visapati. The Visapati, he was a military leader. A group of Vishes formed a Jana. Those members were bound together by real or supposed ties of kinship. Gopa, he was the head of one Jana. Several Janas formed Janapata. Janapata, it means kingdom. The Rajan, it is also pronounced as the king, was the head of the Janapata. The king was the head of the kingdom. There were several tribal kingdoms during the Rig Vedic period such as Bharatas, Matsyas, Yadus and Purus. And how far the administration happened in that period? The tribal chief or the Rajan was at the center of the administrative machinery of the Aryans. In the work of administration, the king was assisted by a number of functionaries like the Prohita. Prohita, as we know that he is called as priest. The Senani. Senani, at present we are using the word general of the army. The Gramani, he is called as village headman. Spa. He is also called as spy. Prohita was the most important officer of the state. Vashistha and Vishwamitra were the 2 important priests in Rig Vedic age. The former was conservative while the later was liberal. So here we can see the 2 different kinds, conservative and then the liberal. Vishwamitra composed Gayatri Mantra to widen the Aryan world. The king did not maintain any regular or standing army, but during times of war, he mustered militaries. The military elements were strong in the tribal system of the government. The army mainly consisted of patti. Patti, which means infantry. Rathins means chariot warriors. The weapons used by the soldiers were bows, arrows, swords, axes and spears. These weapons were made up of iron. The soldiers were organized into units. It was known as Sarda, Vrata and Gana. We do not come across any officer responsible for tax collection. There was a very limited role for collection of regular tax. The economy was mainly pastoral and not food producing. However, Bali, the voluntary offerings from the people, was probably received by chiefs. Presents and spoils of war were perhaps distributed among some Vedic assemblies. There was no special officer for justice, but spies were employed to keep an eye on theft or burglary. Prajapati was the officer who enjoyed authority over a large land or pasture ground. He led Brahmanis to the battle. Gradually, Brahmani became identical or Rajapati. The next one, popular assemblies. The Aryans had their own folk assembly known as Vidatha. It means for the economic, social and military purpose it was maintained. Though the king enjoyed substantial power, yet he was not an autocrat. In the work of administration, he consulted two bodies and acted according to their decision. These were Sabha and Samiti. What do you mean by Sabha? It was a select body of elders and advised the king on administration. It also functioned as a court of law and tried criminal cases. The head of the Sabha was known as Sabhapati. And the next one is Samiti. It was the most popular assembly and included common people. The Samiti mainly dealt with the political business of the state. It also used to elect the king. The head of Samiti was known as Patti. Vashistha and Vishwamitra were the two important priests in Rig Vedic age. The former was conservative while the later was liberal. As we discussed earlier here, the same mentioned. Vishwamitra composed the Gayatri Mantra to widen the Aryan world. Now, the social life of the early Vedic people. Here, we can divide this into many categories. Let me explain. First, we are going to discuss about the society. Kinship was the basis of the social structure and the identity of the man was decided by his clan. People gave their primary loyalty to the tribe or jana. There are indications which point towards the consciousness of physical appearance among the people. Varna was a term used for color which provided the identity mark for the social orders. Rig Veda mentions Arya and Dasavarna. It seems that Aryan people were fair in color while the indigenous population were dark. The Dasas and the Dasyus conquered by the Aryans were treated as slaves. Slaves and mainly women slaves meant for domestic purposes. They were given as gifts. To whom? To the priests. Social inequality in the tribes emerged as tribal chiefs and the priests acquired a large share of booty at the cost of their kinsmen. Gradually, the society came to be divided into three groups. They are warriors, priests and the people. However, the differentiation of society based on occupation was not very sharp. The society was largely tribal and egalitarian. And then the second category is family. The family was patriarchal. It was regarded as the social and political unit. The father was the head of the family and he was known as Grihapati. Monogamy was generally practiced while polygamy was prevalent among the royal and noble families. There are few indications of polyandry. There are also indications of matrilineal races. The wife took care of the household and participated in all major ceremonies. Women were given equal opportunities as men for their spiritual and intellectual development. There were women poets like Apala, Visvavara, Gosa, Lopamutra and Gargi during the Rig Vedic period. Women could even attend the popular assemblies. There was no child marriage and the practice of sati was absent. The marriageable age seems to have been 16 to 17. Women could offer sacrifices along with their husbands. Widow remarriage and the practice of levirate was present in the Rig Vedic society. And next category is clothing. The Aryans wore dresses made from cotton, wool and deer skin. The garments consisted of three parts as undergarment called nivi, a garment called vasa or paridan and the mantle known as adivasa. Both men and women wore gold ornaments. The women used earrings, necklace, bangles and anklets. And next one, food. Wheat and barley, milk and its products like curd and ghee, vegetables and fruits were the chief articles of food. Fish, birds, goats, rams, bulls and horses were slaughtered for their food. Slaughter of the cow was prohibited since it was considered a sacred animal. People also drank intoxicating liquor, sura. Caste system. In the early Vedic period, there was no caste system. Instead, they were divided into classes. Members of the same family could pursue different occupations, arts, crafts and trades and could change it at will. There was hardly any restriction in intermarriage and change of occupation. What about education? There were gurukulas which imparted education to the disciples after their sacred thread ceremony. Entire instruction was given orally. The disciples were taught about ethics, art of warfare, art of metal and concept of Brahma and philosophy and basic sciences like agriculture, animal husbandry and handicraft. How for their economic condition? The Aryans did not live in cities but possibly in a kind of fortified mud settlements. Painted grey ware has been found in the Bhagwanpura and other sites in Punjab along with late Harappan pottery. Agriculture. The Rig Vedic Aryans were pastoral people, but when they permanently settled in North India, they began to practice agriculture. They ploughed the land by means of a pair of oxen. The ploughed land was known as Urvara. With the knowledge and use of iron, they were able to clean forests and bring more lands under cultivation. However, the land did not form a well-established private property. The earliest literary references to the use of iron in Indian subcontinent are found in Yajurveda. Besides the main crops of barley and wheat, cotton and oilseeds were also grown. Cows were worshipped and were symbols of wealth and prosperity. Sometimes cow was a medium of exchange. The wealth of the people was estimated in their terms of their cattle. The cow seems to be their most valuable possession and the wars were fought for the sake of the cows. Other animals like horse, draught ox, dog, goat, sheep, buffalo and donkey were also domesticated. Crafts. Weaving was an important occupation. Carpentry was another important profession and the availability of wood from the forest cleared made the profession profitable. Carpenters produced chariots and plows. Workers in metal made a variety of articles with copper, bronze and iron. Spinning was another important occupation and cotton was woolen fabric were made. Goldsmiths were active in making ornaments. The potters made various kinds of vessels for domestic use. Trade and commerce. Trade was conducted through barter system. There were trade and maritime activities Sometimes traders made a journey to distant lands for larger profits in trade. The cow was 24 ancient India used as a value of unit. Gradually the piece of gold called Nishka were used as a means of exchange. Trade and commerce were regulated and managed by a group of people called Pani. Transport. Rivers served as important means of transport. The chief means of transport by land were rathas. It is also called chariots and wagons drawn by horses and oxen. The religious life of the Rig-Vedic Aryans was simple and plain. They worshipped and personified the natural forces. All these Aimbhudangal, that is earth, fire, wind, rain, thunder. In spite of worshipping various deities, the Vedic age saw the prevalence of monotheism. The idea of single supreme power governing and controlling the universe seems to have emerged. Indra was the most important god and he was also known as Purandra, the destroyer of forts. Soma was the god of plants. The Maruts personified storm. There were also female gods like Aditi and Ushas. The male gods were more important than female gods, a patriarchal setup of the period. And the nature of worship, there were no temples and no idol worship during early Vedic period. Prayers were offered to the gods in the expectation of rewards. Ghee, milk and grain were given as offerings. Elaborate rituals were followed during worship. The theory of reincarnation or a rebirth was not completely formed. The Rig-Vedic hymns had no consistent theory regarding their life after death. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you all understood the Vedic literature, and in the last class we discussed about the Vedic literature and introduction, and this class we are discussing about the Vedic period, early Vedic period, and here we discussed about the social, economic and the life of early Vedic period. Thank you for watching this video. Let us see in the next class. Thank you.